Hello, I'm Stan Smith. Welcome to Is Not, Is To Art Studio. You probably know from the name of the video, Art with a Story behind it, there's going to be a story, right? And we all know from Sesame Street that a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Well, this story actually begins before the beginning. Well, let me just begin. About 20 years ago, I made these copper relief pictures, and I gave a set to my mother, and she hung them up in her home. I've often wondered if my mother's eagerness to hang whatever I made up led to my delusion that I'm an artist, but be that as it may. But as you can see, I had to make several of these to get a good set, but this one came out okay, and then I made a frame for it, and came out fairly well. But my idea was I made a mold to where I could make these, where I could mass produce these. I thought, I could sell them or something like that. Now, I didn't say it was a great idea, but this is the mold that I came up with. So I just cut this out of carbon steel, a lot of grinding and filing, and then I hot glued it to this board, and then I screwed the copper material to this, and then I flame treated it to give it that neat patina look, and then I just hammered it in, and then so it's just a piece of cardboard. And here's the coyote one. So I've often thought that I could reuse this metal part in another art piece, and that's actually where this story is going to begin. I'm going to remove these pieces off of this plywood, and then I'm going to make a background. I'm going to attempt to use epoxy resin for this one would have more of a night sky. Maybe use a little bit of mica or some glitter for some stars, whatnot. And then in this one, maybe more of a hot midday or some pretty blue or orange red sky. But anyway, why don't you stick around and see how it comes out. Step 1. Remove the metal pieces from the plywood. Looks as if the hot glue has done its job well, but most adhesives will let go at high heat, and besides, it's a good excuse to get out my benzomatic flamethrower, aka propane torch. Some more recycle and reuse. This foil is from another project where I made a peacock using resin. I'll put a link to it in the description below. You might like it. I'm not bragging or anything, but as of the making of this video, my peacock video has had upwards of 19 views. Yeah, sure, half of them are probably from me, but still, that is something to sneeze at. Safety tip. Disconnect the power source to any handheld tool before switching out bits, blades, belts, etc. It's really pretty simple. Just protect the fingers you want to keep. There might be some people new to routers watching this. So if you are an expert routerer, then you can just skip over this. I know what you're thinking. Is routerer a real word? I'm not sure, but if it is, I'm adding it to my resume. That sounds impressive. So, if you have ever wondered how to attach a piece of metal to a piece of wood without them touching, it's with one of these. I welded a 1032 bolt to a 1/4-20 nut, and then welded that to the back of the metal piece, and then drilled corresponding holes in the wood and attached nuts on the back. And in fact, if you asked a Mandalorian, they would tell you this is the way. Time for some colors. I'm using my go-to Marine Pro 2-part epoxy. Mix equal parts hardener and resin. And I gotta tell you, things did not go as planned. Everything started out okay, but what's a story without some suspense, right? I could tell right away my resin was cold. My shop was cold. I even broke my stirring stick. But I did not give up. I stuck to my plan best I could. I'm using acrylic paint and some mica powder and a tiny amount of glitter. Notice how white the resin is? That's tiny bubbles. Here I'm pouring the 2 lighter colors into 1 cup and the 2 darker colors into another cup, and then simply pour them out. I could tell right away it was not flowing out the way it normally does. At this point, I wasn't even sure that it would set up properly. But no sense in giving up now, so I resorted to manually spreading it out and hoping for the best. It did take an extra day to set up, but I think it's all good. I never thought I would want to finger paint with epoxy resin, and I still don't recommend it. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Next step, making the moon. The moon is a reoccurring theme in my artwork. I think this one is number 5. I've done white moons, a yellow moon, a copper moon, now this blue moon. Traditionally, blue moon is not referring to its color, but its rarity. But you probably already knew that. Typically, we have 12 full moons a year, but approximately every 2.5 years, we get a 13th full moon. So the real question to me is, which of the 13 full moons is the blue moon? I know some say the third, or some say the second, or it's the second of 2 that fall in the same month. You know what? I like the idea that there is an actual blue moon. So I made this one. You didn't know this was going to be an interactive story, did you? We need to decide where to put the moon and the skull. So what do you think? How about that? Okay, good. And you've probably noticed I have painted the coyote and the rock cliff black. I just used some spray paint for that. You know how most stories have a happy ending? Well, at least any story I would want to hear does. But you know how sometimes something happens and you're just not sure how things can end well? Well, here's one of those times. I have never done this before. I'm fixing to dip this in resin. I'm really hoping this is one of those times when my imagination and my skills come together. So far, so good. I'm pretty happy with the night sky. I think a top coat of clear resin will really give it a nice look. It will also blend the moon into the night sky. I'm removing the tape border now. This method has a lot of resin runoff, and this helps keep it to a minimum. I'm going to use a different method altogether for the hot desert sunrise. I have made a temporary mold because this time my resin is warm. It will run all over the place, and I need it to stay in place so I can manipulate it in order to make the sun. Of course, this will require some extra steps. Hopefully, it will all be worth it. So, one of those extra steps is getting it out of the mold after it is set up for a couple of days. And then using my router again, I round off all the edges and lightly sand it. Of course, sanding it makes it dull, so a final thick coat of resin will bring it back to life. People that see my work in person often think it's glass, and I take that as a compliment, even though it's the resin that looks like glass, not me. Some assembly required. I'm pretty happy with the way these came out. Now I realize it's a very small group of people that would want to hang these in their home, but still, I'm thinking about asking $350 for the set. I would appreciate any comments on the price, the art, the video, the weather, whatever. And you could subscribe to my channel. It's free. Just click on the picture of the really good-looking young man at the end of the video. Till next time, God bless.